From time to time, our tech guy stops by. Rich Brooks is the president of Flyte New Media, and today the topic is podcasts, which are pretty ubiquitous. We hear about podcasts all the time, but for someone like me, I know they're out there, but I'm not sure exactly how to access them. So let's start there. First of all, what is a podcast?
Yeah, so a podcast is basically an on-demand internet radio show. So you can listen to them where you want, when you want. Some of them are created by individual people who are just hobbyists or passionate about what they have to say. Others are done by companies who might want to kind of educate their customers. And still others are done like media companies, like NPR or ESPN may repurpose some of their content for people on the go who just want to listen to that sort of information. Mostly audio, sometimes video, but usually just all audio.
So depending on what topic you're interested in, there is a podcast or probably dozens out there for you. Absolutely. How do I go about finding them?
Sure. So the first thing you want to do, Peggy, is you're probably going to choose a podcasting app. So this could be on a desktop, tablet, or smartphone, and it's just going to be an app to discover, find, and listen to podcasts.
Okay.
So one of the biggest ones is iTunes. It's been around for years. It's the one that usually people go to. The problem is the iTunes works really well on the computer, but the podcast app itself on the phone is just, I think, universally hated. So that's probably not the best one to go with. I use a tool called Overcast. That's a Mac or an iOS podcasting app. And then there's also things like Stitcher Radio, which works on both platforms. A lot of my Android-wielding friends love something called Pocket Cast. And then Spotify. If you're already on Spotify, they do have a podcast section. So there's a lot of different apps to use. Find the one that you like. And then each one has some sort of discovery tool. So you might be able to choose by category. So maybe you like the arts or news or politics or gaming. And so there'll be a category. And then, like, for example, on Apple, they'll show you like the hottest new ones and then the most popular ones. And that's usually a good place for somebody who's just getting into podcasts to get started.
So you probably want to listen to a podcast first before you decide if you like it. But then there's the option to subscribe.
Yes.
What happens if you decide, okay, I love this podcast, I want to hear everyone. How do you go about subscribing, and what does that mean when you subscribe to the podcast?
Sure. So the nice thing about podcasts, what makes it kind of interesting, is it does have this subscription model. It doesn't cost any money, but you can choose to get these automatically downloaded. So let's say you find a podcast on pottery, you love it, and you decide, I want to listen to every podcast episode that comes out. You can there's always going to be a subscribe button right there. So in your app, you click on subscribe, and then every time you listen to a by default, you can always change this, but every time you listen to an episode, it disappears, makes room for the next one, and as soon as the next one is delivered, created, it'll automatically download to your device, so it'll be ready for you on your next listen.
So it does get rid of the ones you've listened to, because that was
default,
something.
But you can stop that if for some reason you want to listen to the same episode multiple times.
Because I think the concern too is if they just pile up in your device and they're taking up space. Is that
you
if
can
that's
run
not
out
happening.
of room for sure.
Yeah.
And so one of the things is a lot of times some of these tools, if you don't download a bunch, or if you download a bunch but you're not listening, they'll pause your downloads because they don't want to fill up your devices too much.
They are way smarter. They
too smart, yeah.
are way too smart. So you've talked about listening to them on your phone, your laptop, your tablet. How about in the car? How does that work?
Yeah, well, same thing. For me, I actually just connect my iPhone through Bluetooth to my car so I can listen to them on the go. I listen to them, on the elliptical trainer. I listen to them when I'm making dinner. So wherever I am, it's easy to listen to. I believe on those Amazon Echo Dots and things like that, you can just say, play and mention the podcast and it'll start playing for you. Stitcher Radio actually is kind of interesting where they have a deal with a lot of new car manufacturers to put Stitcher into your car automatically, just like Sirius XM, so people get used to listening to podcasts.
Right in their car.
Yeah.
So some people think, well, I know about podcasts. I want to do my own podcast. I have so much information to share. Tell us a little bit about that, because you yourself have a podcast.
I do have a podcast, The Agents of Change. If you want to get started, what I'd say is start inexpensive. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You could literally do it just on your phone, although you can go down to a hardware store or Radio Shack. Do they still have those anymore? Anyways, online you can buy like a cheap microphone, and so you can start recording these. I'd say go with your passion, whatever you find most interesting, and then over time you can start to build an audience. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. And once you build an audience, you could actually start making some money and buy some more expensive equipment and continue to increase your podcast domination.
That's the downside of these things. As soon as you make a little money, then you buy more equipment, so you're really not making more money.
If you like to do that, that's actually one of the options. You can certainly make money off a podcast, or you can just say, hey, this is a fun hobby. I love sharing my passion with the world. And then you just get better quality mics, better quality mixers, and this is something to build on. But you can start very inexpensively.
Okay, and very quickly, what are some of your favorite podcasts?
I go through a lot, but my go-to ones are Freakonomics, which is a great podcast that is based on the books. They just keep on coming up with new ones, Stephen Dubner. Hardcore History. I never thought I was going to be a history buff, but Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. Each episode's anywhere from 90 minutes to 4 hours long. They only come out like every 3 months, but they're amazing. Those are a couple of my favorites. And then Revisionist History by Malcolm Gladwell is very interesting as well.
I'm going to be driving around a lot lately listening to new podcasts. So
sounds like a plan.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
and we
you.
will be back in just one moment.